they want the youth here. The AHL is such a fast league, and it's even faster when you get to the NHL, but this is really their first taste of the speed of North American hockey.
Getting through the first 10 games of the season, it's time to circle in on some of the division races that will become critical long into the playoff push when the calendars change to 2026. I'm Allie Berube, the host of The A weekly look around the American Hockey League. This week, we're focused on the Atlantic Division, a gauntlet to survive in the playoffs, and playing in such a competitive division in the regular season usually serves that division champ well in the playoffs, as the Atlantic League team has reached the Calder Cup finals in all 5 of the last 5 championship series. The Hershey Bears winning 2 in that stretch, Charlotte making it to the Calder Cup finals twice and winning in that 2018-19 season. So through the first month of this season, let's zoom in on the toughest division in the American Hockey League so far in 2025-26. It starts with the top 2 teams in the standings. Wilkes-Barre and Providence have been trading places between 1 and 2 every single week. The Bruins just beat the Pens head-to-head last week 3-1 for Wilkes-Barre Scranton's first loss of the season after jumping out to a 7-0 start. The Penguins do own the top spot in the Atlantic Division with 17 points. Joined now by Nick Zelaya from WBRE Sports, obviously covering the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. You guys get off to a 7-0 start, really firing on all cylinders. This week, a little bit get back to home, an overtime loss where they just gave up 3 goals in the third period and lost at the very end of the first overtime to Toronto. But really, this is a team 8-2, 1-0 to start this year. What is the confidence level around Wilkes-Barre right now?
I think it's really high. And when you talk with head coach Kirk McDonald, he's always confident in his group. He has this demeanor where he's never going to get too hip and high about things. He's not going to be cheesing and smiling for the entire interview. He's more of a stay locked in on the next objective. And like you said, their record is pretty strong through the first few games. And I think now the challenge becomes you lose 3 players that have been key for you all season, elevated to the Pittsburgh squad. So now where do they go for offense? Now you have to change up the goalie of the month in the AHL and Sergei Marashov. He's no longer in the picture for at least for the foreseeable future. Of course, he could come back to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, but right now you're without Sergei. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces. I think the Penguins now have to figure out, who they go to for scoring, and defensively, I think they've given up going the first 10 games less than 2 goals a game. And they've been really good about stopping opposing offenses. But now the challenge becomes who steps up in the absence of Murashov, Danton Heinen, and also Ryan Graves.
Yeah, certainly it's been an interesting story. I think the Pittsburgh-Wilkes-Barre connection, right? Because Pittsburgh's in its own kind of rebuild here where they go out and hire Dan Muse, overhaul the coaching staff. And I don't know that anyone really expected, just with the way that they're rebuilding, that there'd be so much movement up and down to Wilkes-Barre. But how do you look at the way that this team has shaped out in the last 2 years in particular? Because there was a number of guys called up last year and the AHL is this level, right? It's developmental. So it's not always about winning on the A level, but it's about winning in the NHL. But did anyone expect that Pittsburgh would get out to such a hot start in the NHL?
It's funny that you say developmental because the Penguins have the idea of focusing on their young core and focusing on their rising stars. And here in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, we've got 30-year-olds that have tons of NHL experience playing. So there's that mixture of veteran leadership, but also some of those young guys that you want to develop and eventually send them down the Pittsburgh route. I think knowing what the Penguins have done the last couple of years here at the AHL level, the postseason success hasn't been there, but regular season success, they're always in the mix and they're always trying to reach the mountaintop. And as you know, the Hershey Bears, they're at the mountaintop and they're keeping that seat very warm. But the Penguins have been one of those teams that are always competing and they're winning games when it matters most. Last year, the last couple of months of the season, they were, it felt like winning every other night. They went on a really strong run to end the year. And I think there's a lot of that momentum coming into this season because you were bringing back a guy in Tristan Brose, who I know had a goal tonight. He's been really good for this Penguins team. Ville Kuvinen's back as well. So you have some of those other pieces that right now are AHL stars, but the objective is for them to become NHL stars. And they're still younger enough in their career where hopefully down the line they can play a huge role for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and not only just the Wilkes-Barre Scranton ones.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point, right? In Kirk McDonald's first season there in Wilkes-Barre, they make the playoffs. Of course, it's a first round exit for Wilkes-Barre, but I think when the standard changes depending on what your NHL club is doing, what the expectations are on the AHL level to find success and go on those late season runs, how much did this core learn from that? And maybe they're motivated because right now you're the best team in the Atlantic Division, pending Providence playing tomorrow, but you just jumped them in the standings with 17 points. So when you think about you're setting a really strong foundation 11 games into a 72 game season, but does that give you confidence that they learned a lot from last season and there's enough of that core where this could be something that pushes into the end of 2025?
Yeah, when we were talking with the players on the locker room cleanout last year, I remember, I won't use the actual words that they told us, but they were not happy with how the season ended. They expected to make a run, and to fall short in the first round for a second straight year was not the expectation for this Penguins group. And now that you bring in a guy in Kirk McDonald, his first season. All right, he's coached at a professional level, but right now he's below the level below the NHL, and it's a different ball game. So now that he had a full off season to really look at what works, what doesn't, I think it's been really valuable for this hot start. And like you said, they play 72 games, so we've got a long way to go. But it's definitely promising to see the Penguins get off to this fast start. It's different now moving forward because you lose, like I will reiterate it, you lose 3 of your best players, and that completely changes the entire perspective of this Penguins team. But I do think they're still very optimistic that they can compete for a Calder Cup championship this year because they've been in the mix the last couple of years, but it's just getting those big wins in the postseason, getting over that hump that they just haven't been able to do. But they're for sure confident that this is a group that can do that.
Well, we wanted to get you while you're atop the mountain right now. So, Nick, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, Allie. Appreciate it.
Lehigh Valley comes in third with the Hershey Bears in fourth with 11 points. About 1 month into the AHL season, the Hershey Bears have certainly found something special, riding a 4-game win streak as the Bears have back-to-back home games coming up this weekend against Toronto and Rochester. Under first-year head coach Derek King, the Bears got off to a slow start, but that was more about learning the team and finding the right line combinations. We went one-on-one with Kinger after Wednesday's practice. Do you feel like you found something, and what do you think you found in this streak here?
Well, I definitely found that these guys don't give up. They persevere, they keep going, so it's a good thing. You never know what you're going to get with a young group of young players, but right now, they're riding a high right now, but I got to keep these guys grounded and keep working at the little details of the game.
Yeah, I think there's always the never get too high, never get too low mentality, but this is such a young group, so do you find their emotions might be a little bit more volatile in something like this?
For sure. It's like kids at Christmas time, right? They're all jacked and they're ripping open gifts, then they don't get the gift they want, and then all of a sudden you see the head drop, right? So these guys, they're kind of similar to that, right? They're going to get high from these wins, and then if you do lose a game in between, that's how you can tell how they react. And obviously we don't want to lose, but we're not going to win them all, and when we do lose, they got to learn how to deal with it.
As far as line combinations go, do you feel pretty settled in what you have? Are you still experimenting?
Well, experimenting a bit, but it seems like and this is the American Hockey League, every game it's like 2 guys go down the last game, and I got, so it's a shuffle. The game before, somebody gets kicked out first shift, and so now I got to shuffle again. And so I like to keep pairs together and then just kind of put one in with that line and see how they do. And if they don't, drop them to another line and grab somebody else. But I try to keep 2 guys, a centerman and a winger, obviously, together as much as I can.
What pair are you most proud of maybe in this stretch then?
All of them, really. It's hard to just, I thought when Cruikshank came in and Topper, I thought they did a good job. Not taken away from their winger, but I just thought those 2 were good together. And then Pro and Thomas were good together. And then I always think Ribby and Trini have played well together. So it's finding just that And we have extra bodies, and I hate when guys are sitting around, so I try to get them in somewhere. So they'll fill in the little spots here.
I think especially American Hockey League, there's so much fluctuation in rosters between injuries and then also call-ups and back down for a day. And how much does that impact a team like this where it's not guys who have played together for a couple years and they know each other? Sometimes you might be learning a guy and then he's gone again.
Yeah. Recently, I don't think its impact is that much. I think we've, fought through it, and guys, they just don't care who they're playing with. And they just go out and play hockey, and that's what we want. So hats off to them, but there'll be a time where there'll be a little chemistry somewhere, and I'll try to keep them together so they don't get all flustered and upset at me because I broke them up.
I think about the flow of a schedule, and obviously we're a month into it at this point. You found something on the road trip with those back-to-back wins. Now you have back-to-back home games this weekend. How do you approach this now, knowing that the guys can have kind of a longer week of practice? How did you handle this week?
Well, I don't like practicing a lot. Like, you get 3 practices in a row that's rare for me. I usually break it up, but yesterday was a fun day, a little 3-on-3 tournament. So now we'll rev it up with today and tomorrow before the weekend gets going. But I don't know, maybe I need to get a hotel room for these guys and pretend we're going on the road. But we'll see. Like I said, it's hit or miss when you have a younger group, what kind of players you're going to get for the next game, but hopefully it's the good ones.
For you, it's a month into the season here as a head coach with Hershey. How have the expectations lived up to what you thought you were doing when you took the job, and how settled maybe do you feel in this role?
No, yeah, but I feel definitely more comfortable with the players and just with my surroundings, with my assistants and the staff. But it definitely is what I was told it was going to be like, and I understand why this is the place to coach. If you can land this job, you're very fortunate, and I feel fortunate, so hopefully I don't mess it up too much.
The Bears are led in points by Henrik Rubinski. The fourth-year player has 7, 2 goals, and 5 assists. He's got the best plus-minus on the team and joined us after practice on Wednesday ahead of back-to-back home games against Toronto and Rochester this weekend. On a 4-game win streak now, you're a month into the regular season. How has it gone so far, and what do you guys think you've figured out in the last 4 games?
Obviously we didn't have the best start, but we're on a roll now, and I think just being consistent. I think just being consistent from period to period, shift to shift. Yeah, we're still going to have lulls in our game, but I think consistency has been important.
I think through the first 9 games, right, there was a lot of different line combinations, but Kinger said he likes to take pairs and kind of shuffle those around, add another guy into the line. What do you think is working in your line, and where do you feel like you guys can progress your game?
I think just building chemistry with each other will be important, obviously, and then I think the biggest thing is, for at least my line, is just building chemistry in the O-zone. I feel like we're pretty good at the rush, but just having those reads, like if I get the puck on the wall, cycling, and knowing a guy will be there, I think that will help us keep possession and win more games.
Was that simply just like repetition and being able to play together?
Yeah, I think it's just like time together, and then just talking about plays like after the shift and just building that chemistry. Usually doesn't happen overnight, so just working together with your line mates and just communicating usually helps.
For you, a black ace during the first cup run, you come back, you win another cup, last season make the playoffs. How do you look at your role now? As strange as it sounds, you're one of the older guys in the room.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's my 4th year now, and it's just to see just how far I've come so far, and my mindset since day one is just to try to get better every day, and I feel like I have been, and I still feel like there's a lot of room to grow, so just got to keep doing that.
Do you remember what it was like to be one of those young guys, and how do you think this team is kind of gelling as so many of them are playing their first professional hockey?
Yeah, for me as a young guy, I was a deer in headlights. I didn't know what was going on, but I think with having a lot of guys that bring that youthful energy, and that's kind of bringing the energy up right now, especially since we're winning, and so it's fun to hang out with those guys. I still feel like a young guy, so it's fun to goof around with them, make the meme jokes. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, when you think about now you guys have found some success and maybe that mentality of like, all right, this is working. How do you also help Kinger keep this group grounded, because it's a long season ahead?
Yeah, just telling those guys like, hey, we got to be consistent. We can't get too high on ourselves. We just got to put in the work when we go to practice, execute, and just be good for the games. And we got to just maintain that.
How has Kinger been? Obviously, you played a couple years under Todd Nelson, and we've heard so much about what his mentality is and who he is as a coach. But from your perspective, how has the first, month, 6 weeks gone with him?
Yeah, it's been good. I think he's brought a little different. I guess they're kind of similar in like how they coach, but there's just kind of different outlook on different points of the game, how he sees it versus how Nelly saw it. So just bringing that extra insight and knowledge. Obviously, he's coached a lot and played a lot, so it's really helpful, and you can always bounce questions off of him, and he's happy to answer. So.
Yeah, you guys have 2 at home here this weekend. How nice it will be to play in this building, and what are the goals for these 2 here?
Yeah, it's exciting. It wasn't a long road trip, but we're excited to be home and playing 2 teams we don't really see too often, so it'll be exciting. And yeah, we just got to bring the energy and be ready to go.
Right on the Bears' heels with 9 points, the Charlotte Checkers, the defending division and conference champs, made a run to the Calder Cup finals last season before falling to Abbotsford 4-2. The 2025-26 Checkers are 4-1-0 to start the season. I want to welcome in Christian Audi, of course, covering the Charlotte Checkers. And there's a lot of hype around this team simply because of the run you put together in playoffs last year. Obviously, you swept our Hershey Bears in the Atlantic Division Finals, swept the Eastern Conference Finals over Laval, and then fell to Abbotsford 4-2 in the Calder Cup Finals. But how much momentum did this team take into the offseason with such an impressive postseason?
And not much, because the team is completely different from what it was back in those Calder Cup. You got a couple of holdovers like Wilmer Skoog. You got Trevor Carrick. You got a lot of new faces here, and it's really because of how the Florida Panthers have built their team. Obviously, it's hard to crack that roster, but all the faces that were there for the Calder Cup run are in different places. For example, John Leonard. He was the MVP of that Calder Cup run last season. He earned himself an NHL contract with the Detroit Red Wings, and yet somehow still got cut, and now he's playing with the Grand Rapids Griffins, and he's already the AHL's goal leading scorer. So when you come and take this team, it's a very young team. It's a lot of guys from the NCAA. It's a lot of guys from the national U.S. developmental team. It's a lot of international people, and the goalies, they're still trying to figure out their goalie situation too. It's no one who was here on the roster last season is a goaltender this season, except for Cooper Black, who was the 3rd, 4th guy. So they're still trying to figure out who they are. It's a very, very young team. But when they do figure this out, Jordy Kinnear, head coach, I mean, he's been an absolute stalwart here in Charlotte. He knows how to get the best from players no matter what age they are. But when they finally figure out how to play as one, this team's going to be really hard to beat right now at 500. But when they do get there, look for Jordy to be the guy who gets the nod for the All-Star bid, because obviously he'll be going just because he was the Eastern Conference champion. But, I mean, this guy is just absolute magic. He makes absolute wonder out of nothing.
I find this one of the most fascinating parts of the AHL, right? Like, you want to find success on this level because it secures a player's future, it can secure a coach's future. But I think when the Bears have won the Calder Cup, people pick at that roster and they want to take bits and pieces because they're proven winners. And so it's no surprise, I think, that Charlotte follows a similar pattern after a year where they went to the finals. When you look at the way the AHL develops talent, I think across the league this year, it's gotten a lot younger. The vet rule coming into play with only 6 vets allowed to dress. Are you seeing that maybe also in Charlotte affecting the roster? Some of these guys who might have wanted to come back to play have to go find opportunities somewhere else as well.
Not so much here in Charlotte, just based off the fact that Florida is trying to develop its younger players, and maybe not even for their own roster. Maybe they're trying to develop them as trading pieces down the deadline. Charlotte, come trade deadline, is a completely different team every year. It's insane. But that's the kind of depth the Florida Panthers have, and that's why they are the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Some of the older guys that you do see here, like Wilmer Skoog, like a Ben Steves, like a Trevor Carrick, those guys are going to dress every night just because not only do they bring leadership to the ice, but they're helping develop those guys who are going to be the next footprint in Florida, who are going to be those trade bait pieces come March, come February. But the new rule hasn't really affected Charlotte too much yet. And I think Jordy and his staff will kind of agree to say that they want the youth here. The AHL is such a fast league, and it's even faster when you get to the NHL, but this is really their first taste of the speed of North American hockey. A lot of these guys who come in from the international spots, they're used to the bigger rinks, they're used to the slower play. Here in North America, it's put up or shut up. It's bang bang. So while we haven't really seen that here in Charlotte, I mean, these guys are really getting the fine taste of what fast hockey is all about.
Yeah, so you said earlier about a 500 record, right? 4-4, 1-0.
Yep.
It's 9 games into the season, and so I don't want to put a whole lot of stock in wherever the standings end up, because I think in the Atlantic Division, top to bottom, it always ends up being a close race down the stretch. No one really runs away with it, and then it's a gauntlet just to get out of the Atlantic Division and into the Eastern Conference Finals. But when you think about how they approached the first portion of the season here, the 10% of this very long season, were there positives that they can take away from that, those 4 wins? What lessons do you think a young team has learned in their first 9 games?
Well, they've definitely learned how to play the penalty kill. These guys are still a little undisciplined, which is creating penalties. I think they already have like 104 penalty minutes or something like that. But these guys are learning how to play on the kill, and they're doing a great job of it, getting guys out of the box, leaving Cooper Black untouched when it comes to shots on goal. They're getting in front of pucks, which is something Jordy and the gang have preached since day one. If you're not able to take a puck in this league, get out, because you're never going to survive in the show. Another thing that these guys are trying to teach, especially with the young goaltenders, is going crease to crease. There's a lot of back and forth here because they're on the kill so much. Cooper's been going post to post trying to figure out, and he's a tall dude. This guy's a monster. If you see him in person, he's like 7 foot with skates. It's insane. But he's having a little trouble getting from post to post. Another thing that this team is trying to figure out is how to play with each other. There really hasn't been a consistent lineup every night, especially if they're playing home here in Charlotte. Home games are generally played on the weekends. Everywhere else in the HL, it's sporadic, just like the NHL across the league. But Charlotte really does have their home games set for the weekends. With that, it comes with inconsistent lineups, who's going to play where, injury call-ups sends down people who are getting sent down to Savannah. And you got to remember, these are guys who generally didn't have a training camp, because the majority of these guys didn't come from the Florida camp down. They were coming up from Savannah. So they're still learning to play together. They're still trying to figure things out. It's a young core, but like I said, it's not something the franchise is concerned about right now. They're still trying to find where the chemistry is and what works. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Well, that's great, because they have 63 more games to figure it out.
Love that. More hockey, the better.
Thanks, Christian. Appreciate the time.
Anytime.
Hartford and Bridgeport are in 6th and 7th place respectively, each with just 3 wins to start the year. And Springfield rounds out the division with just a 1-6-1-1 record. As we've said many times, a long season ahead for all of these teams with over 60 games left in just the regular season. We'll look to see how the standings change and evolve headed into Thanksgiving. But for now, that is a look around the Atlantic Division of the American Hockey League. I am Allie Berube, and this is The A.